Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing my May wrap up. So I'm actually really happy with how well I did for the month of May. I didn't read a lot of books, but you'll see once I get into the stats, I read a lot of amazing reads. So I'm very happy about that. And not only that, but I read 8 books, and out of the 8 books, 6 of them were by Asian authors. One of them was by a Black author, and one of them was white. So I read majority Asian books, which I'm super proud of myself for doing because I wanted to just, read a lot of them. And I was kind of hoping for like the entire month to just read Asian books, but because I had one book that I was thinking about doing a book review on it, like a dedicated video review on it, but because it was kind of like, well, I get into what my thoughts were briefly about this book and why I decided ultimately not to do a video review on it. And then the other one I was just reading because I had to do it for like an art reading vlog, and that was the one that just like spoke to me, and I just wanted to read something fluffy. So anyways, that vlog is actually up already in case you want to check that out. But let's just get right into the stats for my May. So like I said already, for May I read 8 books, and out of the 8 books, one of them I gave 1.5 stars, which is probably like my lowest rating ever. One of them I gave 2 stars, 4 of them I gave 4 stars, and 2 of them were 5-star reads. So like I said, really happy with the quality of the books I read during May, even though the quantity wasn't great, but the quality was perfection. Like I just wish I didn't have those 2 like low ratings overall, but majority of the reads were really good, and I'm very happy about that. So the first book that I want to discuss is From Little Tokyo with Love by Sarah Kuhn. This is actually a book that I read in my reading vlog, which I'll link somewhere above in case you want to check that out. It basically follows a girl called Rika who is half Japanese and half white, living in Little Tokyo in LA. She has no idea in terms of who her mother is. Well, she knows who she is, but she died at childbirth, but she has no idea who her father is, and she actually lives with her family, her aunt's family right now currently in Little Tokyo. One day she is at Nikkei Week, which is a week in Little Tokyo that essentially celebrates all things Japanese, their culture, etc., when she somehow ends up locking eyes with Grace Kimura, who is actually America's rom-com princess, and after that chaos essentially ensues. She ends up going on a journey to find out who exactly this woman is and what her relationship is with her and all the mysteries surrounding that. At the same time, she's also dealing with her anger management issue. I thought this book was actually really freaking cute, and I just really adored it. I loved how this book kind of dealt into Rika's anger management issue, because I feel like it's not a topic that's readily discussed in YA literature, especially from a female's point of view. So I just kind of liked how the author went into detail about that, because at the end of the day, like, we all struggle with anger management issues. Sometimes we are frustrated, we're upset, we get easily annoyed when we're in a bad mood, etc. Like, I just feel like this book kind of dealt with that very well, and I really like that. Another element that I really enjoy is actually how the author delved into Rika's cultural identity. She's half Japanese, half white, and she always struggled with who her identity is, like who she really is, especially living in Little Tokyo where she's surrounded by traditional full Japanese people. So she was always dealing with that struggle and the fact that she never really felt like she belonged as much. So I really liked how the author went and did that. So overall, it was just a really adorable book. There's a romance in there as well that I really adored as well. So anyways, highly recommend this book if you're looking for a very cute romantic book. Then the next book that I want to discuss is Fake It Till You Break It by Jen P. Nguyen. This one I gave 4 stars. This book is basically about Mia and Jake, who are just completely fed up with their parents, specifically their mom, trying to set them up since forever. It was to the point where they were doing everything together, from going to the dentist together to going to school together to just accidentally bumping into each other because of their mom's doings. So they were just really fed up with this. And one day it just got too far when one of their moms, as always, ends up discouraging a cute boy, from asking Mia out. So they decided that enough was enough, and they decided to actually fake date to prove to their moms that they're actually not right for each other, and they'll have this epic breakup, and then their moms would give up finally and they can actually move on their separate lives. However, as you might have guessed, fake dating, they realized that perhaps maybe their moms were right about something after all. This book was really freaking cute. I don't know why this book had such low ratings on Goodreads, or like I just expected higher ratings, I guess, because I really enjoyed it. It was a very fluffy, cute book for me, and it just felt like a really great summer read. Out of the two POVs, I did think that Jake was a little bit more developed, mainly because he had a lot more conflict that he was dealing with, so he definitely grew more throughout this book. I also really enjoyed Mia as well, but I feel like her character ended up being more of like a support character for Jake's problems in some way, but at the same time, at the end of the day, I just really enjoyed how supportive they were of each other for their own like pursuits and goals and dreams, etc. So I don't know, I just thought this book was really cute. Don't know why all the negative ratings, or like the lower ratings, I suppose, but I was really happy that I read this, and it was just, like I said, a great fluffy romantic read. All right, then this next book is the one that I was thinking about doing a video book review on, and I decided not to do it, mainly because I struggled with this book and I just didn't want to do like a whole book review on ranting it. And not just that, like not even really ranting it, I just felt really bored throughout the book and I just struggled reading through it, and it was the point that I just couldn't even like have the energy to tab it, which is what I normally do when I want to do a review. So yeah, this book is called The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This one I gave 2 stars. So as you can see, I kind of tabbed it already, but you know, like I just gave up on it because I was just like, this book is just not doing it for me. I was expecting this amazing fantasy, one of my new favorites, and sadly that was not the case. So this book basically follows a girl called Decca who undergoes a blood ceremony when she becomes of age, and the whole point is to find out if she is actually human, where she can finally belong in her village, or if she is technically a monster slash demon whose blood runs gold. Unfortunately for her though, her blood ends up running gold and she ends up becoming tortured by her fellow villagers, until one day a woman comes into town and giving her an option to either stay here in the village, continue getting tortured and eventually die for real, or joining the emperor's army, who are trying to find women who are just like her, demons slash monsters, because it turns out that these demons slash monsters also have some sort of powers. So of course she ends up going along with this woman, becomes a warrior, etc., and to find out like what exactly are these monsters and kind of the background of it all. This book was honestly quite messy and the pacing was very off, and like I mentioned before, I just didn't really care much of what was going on. It just completely lost me at some point, and it was to the point that I kind of wanted to DNF it, but I felt like I was to the point also where I just kind of want to just finish it and not just like give up when I was already so close to the end. My biggest issue was actually Decca as a character. Her progress throughout the book was just really wonky. She grew up in a village where women were kind of seen as below men. She was always, you know, like viewed herself as a victim. She was treated as such, etc. Also because of the way how she looked, her coloring, all that stuff. So she was always seen and viewed herself kind of as someone who's less in a way. But suddenly when she goes to become a warrior into the emperor's army, her entire character just went from victim to someone who can lead an army. So I was just like, I don't know, I just felt like it was way too sudden and it just didn't really make a lot of sense in that progress. I can see, I like where she ended up. Obviously, I just felt like the way and like how fast that was done was super unrealistic. But the reason why I ended up giving this book 2 stars is actually because I really enjoyed the side characters. There were these talking horse-like creatures that were freaking hilarious, and then there was also this shapeshifter that I found really entertaining as well, like super adorable. So I mean, honestly, like the creatures in this book kind of like made up for it in a way, because I was very intrigued by them, very entertained, and I enjoyed reading about them more than I like reading about the plot or the characters for the most part. So yeah, overall I was really disappointed. I would not be continuing with the series. I believe this is a series, so yeah, I would not be continuing because I obviously didn't enjoy the first one. Okay, then the next book is one that I am super hyped up about, and obviously it should come at no surprise that I give this book 5 stars, and that is China Rich Girlfriend by Kevin Kwan. I thought this was freaking hilarious and I loved it. This is book 2 in the Crazy Rich Asian series, and I really love the first book. And this book essentially just continues following Rachel and Nick, and now they're once again engaged, and she ends up finding a lot more about her biological father. And once she finds out who he is, the two of them actually go to mainland China to find out more about him and to kind of get to know that side of the family a little bit more, because that's something that she's always wanted to know more about. As always, this is super entertaining and fun. It was also very drama filled, but it was very manageable. It's kind of crazy because I just read his other book, Sex and Vanity, and I didn't really like the book as much because it was too dramatic, but the characters also very childish. I feel like this case it was very dramatic, but the characters, specifically like Rachel and Nick, felt super down to earth. They're like normal characters, and I felt like the two of them just really mellowed out the dramatic side of the book, the series in general. So I feel like that is probably why I can keep up with the drama and not feel like it is too much or overwhelmed by it. So yeah, that's why like this book is just freaking amazing. One of my favorite aspects about this book was actually the new character that was introduced. There's a lot of new characters that are introduced, obviously, and one of them is actually Carlton. I actually really liked him. At first I was expecting him to be kind of like snobby-ish, very playboyish, because that was kind of the impression that I was given. But as the book continued though, like I really liked how genuine he was being, and you know, like how he was always rooting for Rachel despite, you know, like the circumstances and everything. Like you'll find out, I don't want to give too much spoilers, but you'll kind of find out like who he is in relation to Rachel, and why he was rooting for her despite the other circumstances that's happening. So overall, I just really enjoyed it. I definitely had a way to continue on the series. I did listen to an audiobook, and I felt like that just enhanced it so much more. I don't know, I was like super invested with the story for sure. Anyways, moving on to the next book. The next book that I want to discuss is actually We Are Not Free by Tracy Chee. This is another book that I gave 5 stars. This book basically follows 14 Japanese American teenagers who are living during the whole World War II situation. Pearl Harbor just happened, and they are now forced along with their families to go into these Japanese internment camps. And the rest of the book just essentially follows their journey as they go through these camps and kind of how that experience impacts the rest of their lives. This was such an incredible read. I was kind of daunted actually by this book, mainly because of how many perspectives there were, but miraculously it worked out really well, and I didn't feel too confused. I was able to follow along perfectly throughout the book. I really loved learning about their experiences during this time period, because I feel like this is just not something that I see readily in terms of like YA literature, especially in nowadays. So I just kind of like learning about this book and reading about what it was like as a Japanese American, what it was like as an Asian American living in America during that time period, and being treated a certain way because of everyone's fears during that war. So overall, I just really enjoyed it. I would say that the reason why I was a little bit worried at first, like I said, it was like the 14 POVs, but the way how the book worked was more like they would have 14 characters, but it was like linear. It wasn't like, oh, they're like from different places. They're all within the same camp. So you see like, you know, this one girl, and then as soon as like her story ends, you'll see it picks up with another boy, but they're also like interconnected. Like they're all within the same group, that you kind of see that just from his perspective, like his view on things, but not from the same like storyline, I guess. It's like as soon as that story ends, wherever that ends, it's like picks up with the boy, and you kind of see like a little bit of his experience and his story along his experience in the camps. Kind of hard to explain, but it just worked. Okay, like it worked really well. And the 14 POVs, if that's something you're worried about, don't be worried about, because you know, it just like the author did a really good job with portraying all of their perspectives and their stories and just bringing it to life. All right, then this next book that I want to discuss is Broken Web by Lori M. Lee. This one I gave 4 stars. I actually talked about this book a little bit more in one of my reading vlogs, so I will link somewhere above and down below in case you want to check that out. So this is the sequel to Forest of Souls, where Saoirse, the main character, finds out that she is actually a soul guide and therefore has the ability to influence the spirits of the dead who are also possessing the dead wood. I'm not going to go much more into it because again, this is a sequel and the book essentially picks up right where the first book ends. But I liked how this book did a lot more world building. It definitely explored a lot more about the shamanism and the different types of magics there were, etc. It was also very action-packed. Like there were just so many things happening, and while I enjoyed how fast-paced this book was, at the same time I feel like there were certain scenes that just flew by, and I wish that the author just took some time to kind of like flesh it out a little bit more and kind of explain things a little bit more, because I feel like like I said, just like things just like flew by, and I was just like, I kind of just wish that, you know, I had learned a little bit more about a certain thing, etc. So that was kind of like my only issue with this book. But otherwise though, like I really enjoyed it. Definitely kind of waiting for the next book. I didn't, for some reason I thought it was a duology, but this is clearly not a duology. It is very much a series. Maybe it's a trilogy, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, there's definitely gonna be a third book in this series, and I cannot wait to pick it up as soon as possible. Okay, then this next book is another one that I read for the same reading vlog that I did with Broken Web, and that is Heartbreakers and Fakers by Cameron Lund. This one I also gave 4 stars. So the book basically follows a Penny who wakes up one day, family party, and kind of has no memory in terms of what happened the night before. It turns out that she cheated on her boyfriend with her best friend's boyfriend, and to kind of get back into her friend's good graces, she ends up deciding to fake date Kai, who is the best friend's boyfriend, the guy that she cheated with. And the two of them decide to just fake date because everyone says, you know, everyone loves a good love story. So they're basically fake dating to, you know, be like, oh, we're actually in love, and that's why we were, you know, we just couldn't help ourselves, and that's why we cheated on you guys, etc. So my thoughts about this book was, I was kind of skeptical about the whole fake dating thing and the cheating aspect, because I was like, I love fake dating trope, like that's a great trope for me. What I don't like about this fake dating trope is that it was stemmed from the fact that they were cheating on each other because they were in love, and that's why they're fake dating. So I don't know, I just felt like something about that just seems super off. I don't think I like the cheating element at all. That being said though, this book ended up being super freaking adorable, and I really liked how the characters, you know, their characters just really grew throughout the book. I would say that the first half of this book was just a setup, but my favorite part was definitely the second half of the book, when things just became more realized, especially from Penny's point of view, and she like came to terms with certain things. There were some great quotes at the very end that I really enjoyed. So overall, like I ended up really enjoying this book. I feel like it had some great messages. It just ended up being a really cute book despite my reservations in the beginning. Okay, down to the last book that I'll be talking about in this wrap up, and that is Star Daughter by Shweta Thakkar. This book I ended up giving 1.5 stars. It was super disappointing. This book follows a girl called Sheetal who accidentally harms her father when she loses control of her power. She has lived her entire life trying to conceal her star half, because she is half star and half human, especially ever since her mother left her and returned to the celestial court. But because of the incident with her father, she decides to head up there herself and see if they can help her heal her father. There though, she finds herself in the middle of a competition where she is one of the competitors. In the meantime though, she's also learning more about the star's prejudice against humans, as well as her family's history. This book was weird. I did hear a lot of negative reviews prior to reading this book. Like right when this book came out, I heard a lot of people disliking it, etc. But I don't know, I just was like, you know what, let me just keep an open mind, see if I enjoyed it or not, and I kind of see where they're coming from. This book was really strange, because this book originally was going to be all about her saving her father, her in this competition, but instead this book primarily focused on the star's prejudice against humans. Like there was a lot of discussion about how much they hated humans, why they hated humans, why they want to shut the doors between the courts and the human world, etc. And I was just like, I'm just here for a competition, guys. Like I am not here to discuss so much about your prejudice. Like I don't understand your prejudice. Like I understand, like, you know, there was this one incident many years ago where this one human treated this one star terribly, but that was not the case for majority of the people. So I don't understand like why there was so much hatred towards human because of that one incident. But aside from the prejudice element of this book that ended up being like a giant portion of it, I also didn't really like too much about Sheetal. She was just super annoying and immature. Like she was definitely not a strong character whatsoever. And the last part that I was like, what is going on with this book is the romance. So she and this guy, like they were always kind of like had this thing for each other since the beginning of the book, and turns out like you find out very early on that he has actually lied to her and hid things from her and never really supported her when it really mattered and all that stuff. And I'm like, but yet you still want to be with him. Like what are you thinking here? So I don't know, I just felt like that also stems from her like immaturity, I want to say. So yeah, overall, like I just did not like this book whatsoever. It was like messy, it was like the plot was awkward, and I don't know, like I didn't care much for it at all. So yeah, that's the book that I was most disappointed by. Unfortunately, it was the last book that I read for this month, so I ended on like a really weird note, I want to say. And I feel like that also affected my June reading, because so far my June reading is like, it's been struggling. But yeah, that's all to say for this month's wrap up. Let me know down below what you read this past month. Have you read any of the books that I mentioned this time around? And if you have, what did you guys think about it? I'm super curious to know about your thoughts if you guys have read Star Daughter as well, just because pretty much all the reviews I've heard about it, it's like negative. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are for that. But as always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. And if you'd like to see more content of me, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. As always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!